is Reverend Don Lewis coming to you from beautiful Florida. And today our question comes to us from Vivian Dewey. And Vivian Dewey asks whether there is a difference in the learning process for a younger person versus an older person, and whether it is harder for a person who comes to magical practice late in life and does not have so many years ahead of them to practice it, versus a person who's just starting out in life. And my answer to this is that every person's path is somewhat different, even if they're following the same system. And that difference is not based on their age, but their personalities, and many other variables as well. However, there are a few things that can be a factor involving age, but they're not going to be a factor for everyone. And the first thing that should be said about this is that young people can be very wise, and old people can sometimes be very foolish. And so generalities really are not always helpful in a question like this, but certain things an older person might have that will make the path a little easier for them include a greater sense of who they are, and a greater and more realistic assessment of their strengths and weaknesses. Just the process of going through life can help us to have that realistic assessment of ourselves and that deeper knowledge of who we are, what we believe, and what we want. And if, as one has aged, that has happened for one, that will make this process easier. Another thing that an older person might have, though not all older people will, is a greater understanding of what is a problem and what is not a problem. A lot of younger people, because they haven't necessarily faced so many problems, will take smaller things and blow them out of proportion because it's the first time they've ever dealt with it, and they don't realize how simply many things can be solved. Older people who have actually lived life sometimes have a more realistic assessment of what really constitutes a problem. This can also be a difference between those who have more money and those who have less, because I will tell you, I have observed that nobody ever has more problems than the person who has no real problems, because they have no experience with problems and everything will knock them off course. If, as you have aged, you've dealt with many problems, you're going to find everything easier, not only in magical practice, but in life. And of course, the last thing that an older person has is a greater sense of mortality. Most of us, as we grow older, begin to realize that we don't have as many years in front of us in this particular incarnation, and especially if we have faced illness or accidents or come near to dying, we can be very conscious of it sometimes. And what that can do for a person is help you to really see what's important in your life and how you really want to spend it and where you want to focus. And a sense of one's own mortality can be a great help in life in general, and certainly in magical practice. So these are some things that for some older people will actually make it rather an easier path than a harder one. Of course, there are also things that can also make it an easier path for younger people, but that's another question. So I hope that that gives you something to think about, and until next time, may you blessed be. Today's vlog is brought to us by the term androgynous.
Androgynous. The term androgynous means to have characteristics of both sexes. Many pagan deities have androgynous forms, including Ishtar, Cybele, Shiva, and the famous Hermaphroditus, to name only a few. This refers to the idea that spirit and matter, represented as female and male, are not truly separate, but rather two aspects of the same force.